You're listening to Diva Tonight with Carlene Humphrey, a relationship podcast with a focus on life, love, and friendship. Welcome to Diva Tonight.
Hi, I'm Carlene, and this is Diva Tonight. I have with me on Zoom Trisha Daho, and she is the CEO and founder of Empowered. She is a force to be reckoned with, I guess, right?
I'm pretty easy. I am a force. It's easy to reckon with me, though.
Yes, that's so true. So thanks for joining me on the show. And as we were saying before, like in the corporate world, there's this look that you have to present. So you said prior that you were working for Ernst & Young, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what was that like?
Well, it was a lot of things. I loved my career there for the most part. I started out of law school in Cleveland and went straight into EY. Got transferred to Detroit and got promoted there to partner ultimately. Then I spent some time in the Carolinas running a practice down there. And then I was moved to Chicago. And Chicago was a very different culture than I was used to. Leadership was not really excited about my arrival because it wasn't their decision. And they made that known quite a bit. And I got to be, 39 years old and decided I wanted to do something else with my life. And I figured that I could have an actual more powerful impact as a third party to companies than I could as a partner in my own firm. And so I jumped and started my own company. My company is focused on creating thriving cultures and giving people what they need to be, have the aspirational career path they really want. And we do that in a few ways. We do a lot of leader development. We do a lot of kind of fractional chief people officer stuff. And now I get to do it for both Europe and the US. So I love what I do. I'm very, very lucky.
Yeah, that's amazing. And so, speaking of which, where you're located, you are Paris, right? Paris, France. And,
outside of Paris, yeah.
Yeah, Paris. So obviously the business sector is a little bit different than, US or Canada where I'm at. What is it like now you're finding with everything that's happening? Like, we'll not go into politics, but from like your career path to now and being in Europe while all the chaos is happening?
Well, there are cultural differences about how they do the work that I do. Corporate culture as a concept is not really nearly as developed as it is in the US. So there's some, learning curve. There's, proving my mettle. The UK is way farther along than the rest of Europe is on these things. Germany's close. Netherlands is working on it. I'm still doing a lot of American clients. So, 80% of my clients are still American. That's probably not going to change because I worked the first 10 years of my business development to develop that kind of network. So I'm not going to let it go now. And it works out fine. The vast majority of what we do in the firm can be done remotely. And when my clients need me, I show up.
Yeah. So I always ask this question because I feel it's not where you are, it's where your path leads you. And so what was it like growing up? Did you have parents that were entrepreneurs?
Well, my mom was a nurse and my dad was a regional manager for a bunch of stores. And then he broke out when I was in high school, or I think it was in high school, and started a company with a partner. He had an entrepreneurial spirit. He was a bigger than life personality, great with people, and, thought big, was kind of fearless. I was not a lot of that. Like I'm kind of the softer version of him. I'm still an extrovert, but not to the extent that he was. He was a bigger than life personality, for sure. I grew up because of his tutelage and the way he had to grow up with a very deep understanding that in order for me to be successful, I was going to have to be well educated and work really, really hard and just do what people said. And that's what I did. My entire existence up until I started my own company was about doing so well that I couldn't be ignored and doing it all on merit. And really the idea that my worth was only connected to what I did for a living and what I could do for other people for a living. And that had to change quite a bit to be a successful entrepreneur. The idea that it's all up to me, I can do whatever I want. There's an infinite amount of opportunities. It's really deciding which ones you want and which ones you're best suited for. That had, you don't get feedback except for yes or no when you're a business owner. And that was a hard one for me to get. So it's been a transition. It probably took me 2 years before I was really completely, mindset shifted to business owner versus I work in a giant place where I'm rewarded for my good work and what revenue I bring in, and that's it. But I think that's a shift that's happening a lot to a lot of other people. I think a lot of people, especially women over 40, are jumping out of corporate jobs to start their own thing and have a lot more autonomy, but also say in the design of how they function in the world with regard to their businesses.
Yeah. So you've been working in corporate America. You said obviously you built yourself up. It took you a decade, right? And so what have you learned from those experiences? It seems like your family and your work ethic probably came in hand, but
what have I learned? Wow, I've learned a ton. I tell this story a lot, but it was a turning point in my life. When I met my husband, I met him on vacation to Paris. And then we started a long distance relationship where we would go back and forth. I remember being here one summer and I was sitting at a cafe across from Notre Dame in Paris, and he was with me, and I was doing a conference call because I had to do a conference call. And when the conference call ended, and he didn't have any judgment at all in his voice, but he looked at me and said, "Do you really love this much?" And nobody had ever asked me that question before. But it was a turning point for me because I went home and thought to myself, I really feel like I've been made to believe that I am only a one-trick pony, that I can only be good doing exactly what I'm doing now. And that these skills I've developed over 75 hours a week for 16 years can't be translated into something else more meaningful to me. And I had to do that shift again. I think a lot of people feel that way. They don't know how to add up the skill sets to a completely different life. And when they transition, so they stutter a little bit when they transition. They have to stumble a little bit before they get there, but you get to decide what is most meaningful to you. When you're finally through the rough patches of I've got to take whatever's available and get enough of a brand built and a reputation built that I can say I've done this, this, and this. It is really empowering to say, I don't think we're a very good fit for each other. I don't think that we're going to be successful together if we embark on this together. And you get to pick and choose the people you really want to work with. And that is when it really starts to get beautiful. So there's a lot of lessons in all that. The sooner you can get to that spot, the better. You're not limiting yourself by choosing the people you work with. And that means clients too.
Yeah. No, there's something to be said with that, like building your own brand. And so you've built your own brand. So how does brand align with culture? Or like, how do you
I see them as two sides of the same coin. So,
okay.
So brand is culture externally and culture is brand internally. So if you're doing it really well as a company, the brand people experience on the outside of your company will look very familiar when they go inside your company and experience your culture. It will be the same. So for example, when you do, and I'm not a marketing expert, so keep that in mind, but when you do what I call employer branding, say I help them create a talent acquisition strategy. And part of that talent acquisition strategy is, okay, now let's see how we can draw them, like exactly the kind of people we want into the firm. Then you have to be honest about what you really are on the outside. And the same branding you do to get clients can be the same branding you get to draw in the right employees. It's all one big cycle of this. It's the same coin flipping over and over and over again. So I think if you're being really authentic with yourself as a company, then your culture reflects your brand and your brand reflects your culture.
Wow. So, okay, your background is in accounting, right? And so that's where you help your clients at the end of the day. As an entrepreneur, it's always important to look at the numbers, right? The numbers define how the company's doing, how the projection for the future, and how they align with the market. So as someone who has worked for big corporations and helped the business to what it is, what do you think is important with the business side of things? I guess in terms of like accounting, like getting all your ducks in a row.
Well, I don't think most people come from that background when they start their own companies. That's the important thing. Yeah. So don't depend on yourself to figure it out. Get someone to help you. That seems relatively elementary, but my goodness, people worry so much about it because they don't know what they're doing. And when people fill in the gaps with what is missing information, they don't think of good stuff. They think of bad stuff. So it's way more powerful to just get someone to help you and someone who will be completely honest with you. I see a lot of companies take investment out, like earnings out of the companies in the beginning. Big mistake. Leave the money in there until you're really safe. I think for me, money is safety and freedom. It's not buy new cars. So I think the message people don't understand in the beginning is you got to live really tightly until you feel like you're safe enough that you don't have to live so tightly anymore. And if it requires someone else to set that up for you because you're not an accounting person, then just do that. It's not expensive, and the dividends paid for doing the right things there pay off the rest of the time in your company.
Yeah. I'm not good with numbers. In terms of accounting, I barely passed accounting class. So you would have been the person I turned to in school. You know what I mean? And then I was like, oh, I definitely can't do my taxes. I can't even balance this spreadsheet. You know what I mean? And we realize as we get older, like, what we're good at and what we're not so good at. So my show is about women in their 40s. And, you know, we talk about like turning 39 and then realizing that this is not where I want to be in the long run. I think your partner, your husband, brought that to light. So when you have that vision, how did you plan to build Empowered? Like, how did the process go?
Well, what I say to you will expose a little bit about my insecurities, frankly. So when I started out, I thought, people are not going to hire me right away to do DEI work and culture work. I'm going to have to show them I can make the money first before they'll get me to do those other things. So I was a basic management consultant. You know, how do I set up your business so that you're successful? How do we strategize how you're going to do that? How do we get the people together? How do we get the clients going? How do we, solve the issues around branding and marketing? And that was successful, frankly, but I didn't love it. I was proficient at it and good at it, but I didn't love it. And so once I was successful enough, I started switching to, I'm a culture expert. I am obsessed with culture and with people being successful and giving them what they need to be successful. I know I've seen what happens when you build intentional cultures where people can succeed. Everybody gets to succeed. And, I think part of it was my passion for it and having very strong convictions about it. But I switched. I think that's a really important lesson. So when you start your company, you might have a very clear idea of what you want to be doing long term, but it might not match where you are with your brand in the very beginning. And that's okay. Your brand and you and your business get to evolve. And that's, I doubt that Apple, for example, knew that they were going to be making iPhones when they first started out. Like, you get the grace to evolve. Give yourself the grace to evolve and start where you are with what you have so that you can show success and build brand with the marketplace you want to work in. You're allowed to change as you go along. The market will show up to face you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's interesting you say that with the brand. So when I started this podcast in 2020, it was Carlene Tonight. And I changed the name because someone said to me, no one knows who you are. No one knows Carlene. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess that's true. Cause like when you're building a brand and you're like in a market of like people, like there's so many podcasts now, it's oversaturated. And so you have to figure out a way to like change your brand or stand out in some way. So I changed it to Diva Tonight. And it's slowly growing, right? And I feel like with any business or any brand, like you have to be consistent. And I've fallen off the horse many times, Trisha. I stopped after a year. I feel myself burnout. So it's like 70 episodes in, and then I just, I got sick though, like really bad. And then I couldn't get back on again. But I think when you do something that you're good at, and then people remind you that like you have to get back at it. And so something happened along the way that not forced me, but like brought the passion back. And so I think you're right when you say that in terms of like your business and like having people help you with certain things like that you're not good at is key, but also building a culture, right? And so your focus is on culture and diversity within the business sector. And how do you build a strong culture based on your own personal experience?
I'm very much a proponent of what I call values-based behaviors. Your culture is built either intentionally or unintentionally. When it's unintentional, you get everyone else's stuff that comes to the table and shows up as a cultural norm at some point. If you create it intentionally based on a shared set of values that you're going to hold true to yourselves around, and you thread those values through everything you do, from client service journey to performance management to talent acquisition and everything in between, how you get promoted, how you get mentored, all that stuff, then you've really got something that's worthwhile. It creates boundaries around what is appropriate behavior. People often say, we don't want to be too corporate. You don't have to be corporate to have an infrastructure around what is truly important to you and the people that work in your company, and kind of committing to each other on that. All it is, culture is a commitment to a certain set of behaviors that we're going to abide ourselves to. That's it. But so many times there isn't enough intentionality in it that you get big swings. When you're inconsistent in how the culture shows up, that's when you have problems. You have people stepping outside of what you think is appropriate, and then that becomes a trend because people don't know what the norms are. And the norms should never be based on one certain person or cult of personality around a couple of people. It should really be, what do we expect everyone in our firm to abide, and why does that matter to all of us? And that's the difference between intentional and unintentional.
Diva Tonight, glamour for your ears.
You were not born to be broke. So why does building wealth feel so difficult? Most of us grew up learning how to earn money, but not how to build wealth. Wings of Abundance helps you rewrite that script. Inside, I share the exact mindset and practical steps to shift from lack to raise your self-worth and to open the door to overflow. Start healing your relationship with money. Grab your copy and step into abundance on your own terms. To get your copy, click on the link in the description or purchase on Amazon.
So in the market right now, we are but we are in the age of technology, AI, and working hybrid. And so if someone who's listening right now and they're trying to transition from working corporate to building their own business, right? And or even looking for, I'm asking you two questions. So if they're looking to transition, what do you think are the key components that they should consider before making the jump?
You mean to jump out of a corporate regular job and start a company?
Yeah.
Well, to be very candid, how much runway do you have financially? Can you support yourself or the people you're in charge of for 6 to 12 to 18 months while this thing gets going? Often when people jump out, I didn't have this luxury, but what a lot of people who jump out of corporate can keep a couple of big clients they had at corporate. If that's the case, then they don't need as much of a runway as someone who comes out and is going to be serving a completely different set of people. So do you have the financial wherewithal to get through 12 to 18 months on what you already have saved to live on? Are you able to do business development? Can you develop relationships with people in a way that makes them want to work with you and pay you to do so? If you don't want to do business development, it's going to be really hard to have your own business. Unless you're doing something high tech and you're behind the scenes and it's all marketing and people just buy for the marketing. I don't have that. I work with people who run firms, and those firms have to trust me enough to invite me in. It's a conversation. So those two things. Do you have a strategy? Can you put a strategy together around how you're going to get it done? How you're going to define your brand, how you're going to take it to market, who you're actually going to serve in the market, and how you're going to communicate with them. And that's about it. If you can do those things, if your messaging is good and you know exactly who it's going to come faster than you think. But I see people fall down where they're kind of amorphous around what they're actually giving the market, what their product or service is. Have to get really clear on what that is, why it matters to your buyer, and why your buyer is going to engage with you and what they're going to get out of that engagement. I see a lot of, fuzziness around that in the beginning that people have to work through. And the sooner you get to that, the more you can get to revenue that sustains you.
When you say business development, can you break that down for average person like myself? I know it's an important component, right? Business development, developing the idea of the business, the goal, prospects within the first year, 2 years, and down the road, right?
So business development to me is going out looking for clients and and ultimately closing work, getting new work. So, who are you going after? What is the geography? What is the profile of those people? Why do they need what you're doing? What problem are you solving for them? How am I going to connect with them meaningfully? I do a lot of my business development because I speak a lot at conferences. That's been a powerful tool for me. Some people would rather write, big dissertations on stuff and be like a thought leader that way, what they call content marketing. Some people go to business networking groups. That's actually the thing I'm doing next after this call. I have a consortium together of people that serve the accounting industry in this situation. So being with like-minded people that are chasing the same kinds of clients is a great way to go. But business development can take many forms. It depends on what you're selling and who your targets are and how you get to those people and create a meaningful relationship so that there's work to be done.
Yeah. I think the one thing is in this day and age, it doesn't matter what work you're doing, you are always dealing with people and finding a way to figure that out, figure out how you're going to do that. Like whether you're an extrovert or an introvert, you know what I mean? Either way, we're always going to be dealing with people. And yeah, so with that in mind, how can a leader be a better leader in a diverse team? What are the trademarks or, the steps to be? Mm-hmm.
So I really think it's all the mindset. The most successful people I work with have the ability to do deep self-reflection. If you cannot reflect on yourself and how you are showing up and what the impact you're having is, it's going to be very hard for you to be successful. So it takes a lot of self-reflection and a lot of focus. Those two things to me are the arbiters of success, no matter what you point them at. With regard to the rest of your team, it's being able to honor the contribution of all those team members when they don't look like you, meaning they have a different way of thinking. They have a different way of deciding what is successful for them. They want different things than you do. Nobody's, like if it's your own business, nobody's ever going to want that business to succeed as much as you do. They can be extremely good at whatever you ask them to do, but the expectation that you have around these people has to be, I want them to feel like they're thriving here and that they're in a good place because it's a good place for them to be and thrive, because they're never going to care about it the way you do. And that's okay. That's perfectly okay. That's normal.
Wow. I like that. I think you're right. Definitely self-reflection is a lot because no one's coming to save you, as they say. I think we all have those moments where you're sitting here alone and you're like thinking in your thoughts and how it's going to be. And so this shows, I mentioned this, but I didn't ask you the question. So when you turned 40, what was the turning point for you?
Ooh, I'm not sure I had a turning point.
Oh, or did you have?
I didn't really. Honestly, I am now past 50. So,
oh my gosh,
50 was a much bigger point in time for me.
Oh, okay, I like that.
40 was, I looked 30 when I was 40. It wasn't really how. No one knew I was 40 but me. It didn't really start to change. Like things start to really change around 45. When you need reading glasses and you can't fake it anymore. That's a big one. When people start to view you differently and see you as a woman differently than they did 5 years ago, then you start to think differently about how you're showing up in the world. 40 is like a breeze. Just wait like 5, 6, 7 more years. You're going to see. And then you'll be like, oh, I remember what she said about this. 40 was on it. There was a very important thing that happened to me at 40. 40 was, I need to decide what I want most for myself and stop pleasing everybody else around me. That was huge. But that's probably the biggest milestone of 40. As a woman, I exist and there's worth to that regardless of what I do for anyone else. And I get to decide what I want for myself, and it's not selfish to want that. That was probably my biggest 40 epiphany.
Oh, I do like that. Yeah, that's definitely something I'll probably reflect on. So I was doing a little homework and I see that you like foreign films. I love movies myself. And so as a foreign film lover, what is your favorite one of your top?
Ooh, that's hard.
Okay.
Romantically, I would say Cafe Paradiso is one of my favorite films. It's the one that comes right to my mind. I will tell you that one of the most exquisitely done movies that no one ever talks about is a movie called Amour, just Amour. And it's about an old Parisian couple that have lived together forever and have a very, definitive routine for their lives, and she gets sick. And it is a life-affirming, life-changing movie. At least it was for me. So I'd have to say the most poignant one is probably that one.
Wow, I like it. I looked it up too, like some foreign films. For me, I watched a lot of movies at TIFF, and one of the ones that I liked was Call Me by Your Name with Timothy Chalamet. I don't know if that's considered a foreign film. It was filmed in France, and I love the music in it. I thought they did a really good job with the soundtrack. But obviously, a lot of the foreign films that were listed, I'm like, ooh, I clearly don't know this genre that well. So
let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Because you're Canadian, does that mean everything not Canadian is a foreign film, meaning all the American films are technically foreign films?
No, I don't see it like that. No, I've gone to the film festival many times to know what a foreign film is, and obviously the American films and Canadian. I mean, a lot of films in the States are filmed here too. It's funny, so I don't see it that way. I think a foreign film is somewhere like maybe they filmed it in Germany, or the director's German, or like there's something that is taken in a different lens. I find, like, you know what I mean. Those are the ones that are in subtitles, in some cases, or, I can't think of the name, Trisha, but I will email you that one movie I saw, which was very interesting. I think it was German, and there's another language in the movie, German and French. It was very, filmed in black and white, and I saw it in 2016. I just can't think of the name. Names are not good for me, but one more thing. So as the CEO and founder of Empowered, the clients that you help, or the companies that you help, what are those companies like? Like, give me an example so that whoever's listening, if they feel like, I like her, I want to work with her, maybe she can help me with my company and help me with culture, maybe, or diversity, inclusion, So
we typically work with law firms, accounting firms, financial services firms in the middle market, meaning medium-sized firms. So firms that have about, let's say, 50 to 500 people are typically where we're working.
Oh, wow. So in your life, what is the legacy that you want?
I think I want my legacy to be that I did all I could to help other people thrive and get any barriers to that thriving out of the way for them. And in my personal life, I loved unconditionally with all I had.
Awesome. I love that. With that being said, so if people want to find you, you're obviously online. Your website is empowered.com. Am I right?
Empoweredlc.com. And my email is Trisha at empoweredlc.com.
And are you on Instagram, all the socials?
I'm not. I'm on LinkedIn. That's about it.
Oh,
as far as my business. I'm very opinionated. So my Facebook is just for me. And I'm on TikTok, but I do a lot of like nothingness on TikTok. It's mostly just for fun.
Yeah. So you've kept it separate. Oh, it's very professional, to say the least. Ooh, I like that. You've shared a lot, and I really appreciate what you've shared. And I think it would be safe to say that it would be in the interest to have you back again for sure. I actually listened to one other podcast, and they had you on twice. She's good. You know what I mean? I think they had more questions to ask you, especially in the world of AI. And I keep saying, let's go, but I think I have one more question. In the world of AI, what do you think people should use AI for and not use it for? Because I think you can use AI to do a lot of things.
Yeah, that's a big question. I'm currently writing an article with someone that is more expert in AI than I'll ever be. And it's about how AI is going to change the landscape of people and culture forever, and what you need to do to prepare that so that it happens successfully for everybody involved. What I will say, as someone who uses AI, I ask ChatGPT to get me the best olive oils or the best perfume combinations. I mean, I'm not a power user yet. I do ask it to outline topics for me so I don't miss anything in that topic that I want to cover. I think it's dangerous to substitute AI for your own wisdom, experience, and expertise. That is dangerous, and I don't think people should do it. I see that happening all the time now, and it concerns me greatly. So there are great things to use AI for. What it should be used for is a real tool to get us out of having to do work that is actually not our highest and best use. So let me give you an example. 100 years ago, maybe more than 100 years ago, you had to wash your clothes on a washing board, and it took you hours. And we discovered we could make a washing machine and put the laundry in there so that we could be doing something much better than washing clothes, right? I hope that AI happens that way when it finally evolves all the way and gets into everything we do, that it allows us to free ourselves up from the things that don't matter so much to us, or are lowly things that we do that we have to get done every day. And we get to be elevated into the things that matter most and the things that are the best contribution of our brain power. We get to actually do those. That's what I hope. I hope it doesn't just erase whole groups of people from having any relevance. That would be awful to me.
Yeah, no, it's true. I think it is a great tool to help you organize. I found like in ways to help me organize my files, my digital files, like it'll help me with that, with certain things, because I'm really procrastinator and I'm really bad at keeping things in order. But yeah, it is taking away from the social things. And sometimes I want to go back to the way things were when we had good television. We had a landline. I feel like I'm happy that I grew up in that time where no one knew.
We could really separate ourselves from technology and have a life that had nothing to do with technology. Yeah. Those were really good days. I mean, I know it sounds like we're old people and we're nostalgic, but there is something to be said. I spend Sundays without any connection to technology. I can actually focus more and think more and engage more and connect more. And that's what I hope for everybody. Mm-hmm. You know, we got to get to the middle way where we get to have a little bit of both, and we decide what happens with us, how we spend our time, how we connect, all that stuff.
Yeah. I hope we get to that point before it takes over, because it's moving a lot quicker than I thought it would. You know, we read about it in many places. I remember seeing it in movies and reading about 1984, and the list goes on. But like when you see it as how fast it's moving now, you're right. Definitely season. But thank you again for that insight. And with that, I'm Carlene, and this is Diva Tonight with Trisha Daho. If you want to check her out, her website again is empoweredlc.com.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
For sure.
Thanks for listening to Diva Tonight. Follow us on Instagram at Diva on the Radio. That's Diva with 2 I's. And don't forget to follow us on TikTok at Diva on the Radio for more clips and conversations you'll love. Want to share your thoughts or send us a message? Text us anytime at divatonight.buzzsprout.com. Until next time, stay fabulous.